Welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? This time, we're tackling Exodus chapter 36.
We're diving deep into the blueprints, material lists, you name it, it's all there, all for building the tabernacle.
It's like finding those old IKEA instructions, but on a biblical scale.
Yeah, and way more gold.
Oh, yeah, definitely way more gold. But this isn't just some DIY project for the Israelites.
No, this is about crafting a portable sanctuary.
It's about creating like a physical manifestation of their connection with God.
Right, in the middle of the wilderness.
Right in the middle of nowhere.
They're fresh out of Egypt, still figuring out this whole freedom thing.
Exactly, just figuring it out. And God's like, hey, build me a place to, hang out.
Yeah, a dwelling place.
And they go all in.
They go all in. Exodus 36.6 even mentions Moses having to tell everyone to stop
donating.
To stop bringing offerings. Too much silver, gold, everything. It's like, guys, we're good.
It's overflowing. I mean, what does that say about their dedication?
Oh, it's incredibly revealing. Think about it. They just left slavery. Resources are limited.
Right. They don't have a lot.
And yet they're overflowing with generosity.
It's like, we may not have much, but what we do have, we're giving to you. It's a pretty powerful statement, don't you think?
It is. And it's not just raw materials either. We also get introduced to Bezaleel and Aholiab.
Divinely appointed craftsmen.
Yes, appointed by God. And they're not just skilled, they're filled with God's spirit.
Wisdom, understanding, knowledge.
They're like the Michelangelo and Da Vinci of the desert.
Right. The dream team of tabernacle construction.
It highlights that this is more than construction. It's devotion.
Every stitch, every detail, it's infused with meaning.
Precisely. Like those curtains, for instance. Exodus 36.8 describes these elaborate curtains. Fine linen, blue, purple, scarlet thread.
Oh, yeah, and let's not forget those cherubim.
Adorned with cherubim. We're not talking your average Bedouin tent here.
No. This is high-end, bespoke craftsmanship. It says they were 28 cubits long, 4 cubits wide. Each curtain. Do you think all those specific measurements had symbolic meaning? Or was it more about making sure everything fit together perfectly?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I mean, the Israelites were meticulous about their religious practices.
Good work.
Percents measurements were important.
Yeah.
But I also think the size and grandeur of the curtains, they were trying to create something awe-inspiring.
Fit for a king.
Fit for their king in this case.
Right. But then alongside all those luxurious curtains, we see them using more practical stuff too.
Yeah. 11 curtains of goat's hair.
Each 30 by 4 cubits.
That's a lot of goat hair.
It is a lot of goat hair. What's the deal with that? Is it purely practical?
Well, it reminds us that the tabernacle had to be functional.
Right. It had to hold up in the desert.
Durable enough to withstand those desert winds. Portable enough to move with them.
Because they were on the go?
Right, constantly on the move. Those goat hair curtains, they were essential.
Weatherproofing protection.
Absolutely. So it's beauty and practicality.
They really did think of it all. What about those extra layers?
Yeah.
They didn't just stop with the goat hair, did they?
No, they did not. Exodus 36.19 describes coverings of ram skins.
Dyed red.
Dyed red, yes. And get this.
This is the kicker.
Badger skins.
Badger skins. Was that just for practicality? Or is there something more to that?
I think it goes beyond just weatherproofing.
Okay, interesting.
The layering, the increasing preciousness of materials, it's like this visual journey.
Leading inward.
Yeah, towards the heart of the tabernacle.
Oh, I like that. It's like this progression of holiness.
Right, sense of reference.
And speaking of approaching the divine,
Right.
that's where the veil comes in, right? This is where it gets really interesting.
Right, the veil. It's not just a divider, it's a symbolic threshold.
Between the everyday world
And the presence of God.
Okay, so imagine you're walking into this tabernacle. You've got these layers of curtains.
They get more and more elaborate.
And then, boom, the veil. What's going through the Israelites' minds as they see this?
I think awe, definitely. A sense of mystery, maybe even a bit of trepidation.
Yeah, because it's not just beautiful. It's the barrier to the Holy of Holies.
Exactly. The most sacred space. Only the high priest could go beyond it, and even then, only once a year.
Wow.
It was a tangible reminder of God's presence.
Powerful.
Powerful, even dangerous.
Not something to be taken lightly. So it's not just about keeping dust out of the Holy of Holies.
No, not at all. There's some deep theological significance here.
Absolutely. It speaks to the idea of holiness,
Separation.
but also this human desire to connect with the divine.
And that connection, it was mediated by the high priest.
The only one allowed to cross that threshold. But even with the veil there, they still needed something to hold up all those curtains and layers.
Right, the framework. Exodus 6 gets into all those details, right?
It does. It's like, here are the nuts and bolts of how this thing is put together.
Yes, and it's fascinating how they achieve both strength and beauty. The boards were made of acacia wood.
You might know it as shittim wood.
Yeah, it's incredibly durable, perfect for that desert climate. And each board was 10 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide.
Those were some serious pieces of lumber.
Yeah, they're substantial.
Blows my mind to picture them lugging these giant boards through the wilderness.
I know, but they had to be portable too, remember?
Right.
They were designed to fit together with sockets of silver and bars of acacia wood.
Overlaid with gold.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? This incredible blend of practicality and artistry.
It seems to be a recurring theme with the tabernacle. And that gold overlay in particular shows up a lot. Was that purely decorative, or was there something more to it?
It's definitely symbolic.
Okay, tell me more.
In ancient cultures, gold was associated with divinity, with purity. So
Yeah.
by overlaying even the structural elements with gold, they were elevating the whole structure.
Sanctifying it.
Exactly. So even the parts you couldn't see were still imbued with the sense of the sacred.
And then behind that veil, in the Holy of Holies, what was there?
The Ark of the Covenant.
This is like the heart of the tabernacle.
Yeah.
Exodus 36 doesn't give us all the details about the ark itself, but what do we know about it?
We know from other passages that it was a chest, also made of acacia wood and overlaid with gold,
Of course.
and it held the 2 tablets of stone.
With the 10 Commandments.
Yes, the 10 Commandments. So the Ark was basically holding God's covenant with his people.
Okay, so we've got this incredible structure, the tabernacle, and at its heart is this chest containing the very essence of their covenant with God. But the tabernacle wasn't just a safe place for the ark, right?
No, absolutely not. It was a place of worship.
A place to connect with God.
Exactly. Exodus 36 mentions other furnishings too.
Like what? What were some of the key pieces?
Well, in the holy place, just before the veil, there was the golden lampstand, 7 branches.
7 branches, okay. And what was the significance of that?
It had to be kept burning continuously.
Really? Why was that?
It symbolized God's constant presence, his light.
Wow, so it wasn't just for aesthetics?
No, it had a very practical function, illuminating the space.
I can just imagine it. The flickering light, the shadows, all these intricately woven curtains. It must have created such an atmosphere.
It must have. Can you imagine?
What else was in the holy place?
There was a table made of acacia wood, overlaid with gold.
More gold.
Right.
And what was this table for?
For the bread of the presence.
Bread of the presence. Okay, I've never heard of that. What's that all about?
It was 12 loaves of bread. They represented the 12 tribes of Israel.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. What did the bread symbolize?
It symbolized their dependence on God.
For sustenance.
Exactly.
Right.
Like they were saying, we offer you this bread, but ultimately you are the source of our nourishment.
That's beautiful. It's all about acknowledging where their true sustenance came from. What else? Was there anything else in there?
There was also an altar for burning incense, again, emphasizing the idea of offering something precious to God.
So it wasn't just about how grand the tabernacle looked. It was about what happened inside, the rituals, the offerings.
That constant reminder of their covenant with God. And that's what makes the tabernacle so fascinating, right? It's a physical expression of a spiritual relationship.
Trying to make that connection between the human and the divine tangible.
Exactly. And it all comes back to that veil, that ultimate threshold.
I wonder, what do you think went through the high priest's mind as he stood before that veil, about to enter the Holy of Holies?
That's a question for the ages.
Right. It's hard to imagine. We can't know for sure.
But I imagine it was a mix of fear and reverence,
Yeah.
knowing that he was about to be in the presence of God.
An intensely powerful experience,
Yeah.
I would imagine. And that experience, that sense of awe, that connection, is something I think we all still seek today, even if our tabernacles look very different.
Yeah. We're still looking for ways to connect with something bigger than ourselves. We're searching for those spaces, those symbols.
And maybe that's what we'll continue to explore as we keep diving into the construction of the tabernacle.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're all searching for that connection, right?
Right.
Trying to tap into something bigger than ourselves.
We are. And even though our tabernacles today look different, I think that yearning for the divine is still very much alive.
It's in our DNA, isn't it? This desire to connect with something beyond the everyday world.
Absolutely. But let's get back to the tabernacle itself for a minute. We were talking about those layers of curtains, that sense of progression leading inward.
Right. It's like each layer adds another dimension of holiness, and then we hit the veil,
The veil, the ultimate threshold.
the barrier between the human and the divine. Exodus 36 doesn't hold back on the details either.
No, it doesn't. It tells us about the blue, purple, scarlet thread,
Fine twined linen.
all adorned with cherubim.
They really went all out, didn't they? It wasn't just a functional piece of fabric, it was a work of art.
Exactly. And I think that's an important point. This veil wasn't tucked away in a dark corner.
It was meant to be seen.
Absolutely. It was meant to be contemplated, a constant reminder of God's presence.
So even though only the high priest actually went beyond the veil, it still played a huge role for the whole community.
It did. And it's interesting, isn't it? They put so much artistry into something that most people wouldn't even see clearly.
Right. The vast majority of the Israelites never actually went beyond that veil.
But it was still imbued with this sense of sacredness.
It's almost like they were saying even the parts that are hidden, the parts that only a select few ever see,
Those parts still deserve our utmost attention.
our best craftsmanship,
Yeah.
our deepest reverence.
It speaks volumes about their dedication to the project, their commitment to their relationship with God.
Okay, so picture this. It's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The whole community is gathered outside the tabernacle.
Waiting, watching.
And then the high priest emerges. He's just been behind the veil in the presence of God.
What a moment that must have been.
Can you even imagine what was going through the minds of the Israelites?
It had to have been a mix of anticipation and anxiety, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Their faith, their forgiveness, all rested on what had just transpired behind that veil.
The veil, in that moment, it represented everything that separated them from God.
And everything they hoped for.
That reconciliation, that connection.
So it becomes more than just a physical barrier, doesn't it?
It becomes this focal point for their collective faith.
Their hopes and fears as a community.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder, I think, that faith isn't just an individual thing.
It's communal.
Right. It's about these shared rituals, these tangible symbols that bring people together.
It makes me think about how this idea of a veil, this separation between the human and the divine, shows up in other cultures and religions as well.
Oh, it's a universal human impulse, isn't it? Trying to understand the transcendent.
Trying to find a way to connect with something larger than ourselves.
And so often we use physical structures, rituals, objects. They help us to do that.
They help us to make sense of these big concepts and to connect with them in a meaningful way.
Absolutely.
We may not have tabernacles and high priests today, but I think we still have our own ways of seeking that connection.
Our own veils, so to speak.
Exactly. Those things that stand between us and what we're trying to understand.
Or those barriers we're trying to cross. What are those veils in your own life, would you say?
It could be a personal challenge,
A spiritual question.
even just trying to learn something new.
It could be anything. But it's that yearning, that seeking, that ultimately matters.
Right. And like those Israelites building the tabernacle, the process is just as important as the end result, isn't it?
It is. It's about that journey, that dedication, that care that we put into it, even if we don't always have all the answers.
And maybe sometimes it's that act of seeking, that act of striving that actually brings us closer to that connection we're looking for.
I think so. It's about the journey as much as the destination.
That journey, that process of searching, it's something we can all relate to in some way, right?
Mm.
I mean, we've been on this journey together, building the tabernacle piece by piece as we've explored Exodus 36.
We have all those layers, all that detail. It's been incredible to unpack. But I think it's worth circling back to one of the most significant elements, the veil.
The veil. Why do you think it's so significant?
Well, I think it embodies this paradox, this tension between separation and connection.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
On the one hand, it's this barrier.
Right.
It's a very physical representation of the boundary between us and God.
Between the human and the divine.
Exactly. But on the other hand, it's so intricately woven, so beautifully adorned with cherubim, it's almost inviting us to look closer.
Yeah, and Exodus 36.35 is very specific about all those details.
It is the blue, purple, scarlet thread.
Fine twined linen. It wasn't just a functional divider, it was a work of art.
And it wasn't hidden away either.
No, it was meant to be seen.
Absolutely. It was a constant reminder of the power and mystery of God's presence. Even if you couldn't go beyond it, you still knew it was there.
It's fascinating to me that they put so much effort into something that ultimately most people wouldn't even see clearly.
I know, right? Only the high priest went beyond the veil. And only once a year.
It makes you wonder, why bother? Why all that artistry for something hidden from view?
I think it shows just how much reverence they had for the entire project, for every single aspect of their relationship with God. It's like they were saying, even the parts that are hidden, the parts that most people will never see,
They still matter.
they still matter. They're still worthy of our best effort, our most skilled craftsmanship.
It's a powerful statement about their devotion, isn't it? So, okay, imagine for a moment, it's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The entire community is gathered outside, waiting.
The anticipation must have been palpable.
And then the high priest emerges. He's just been behind that veil, alone with God. What do you think that moment was like for the Israelites?
It had to have been an intensely emotional experience. They were entrusting their fate, their forgiveness, to this one man who had just stood in the presence of the divine.
And that veil, in that moment, it took on this whole new meaning, didn't it?
It did. It became a symbol of everything that separated them from God.
And everything they hoped for in terms of reconciliation and forgiveness.
Exactly. It was a focal point for their collective faith, their shared hopes and fears. It's a powerful reminder that faith isn't just an individual thing, it's communal. It's about coming together, sharing those rituals, those symbols that bind us together.
You know, it's fascinating how these ideas, the veil, the separation between us and the divine, they show up in other cultures and religions as well.
It's a universal human impulse, this desire to understand the things we can't see or fully grasp, this need to connect with something greater than ourselves.
And we've always found ways to express that desire, haven't we? Through physical structures, rituals, objects, they help us make sense of the world to connect with the transcendent.
They do. They give shape to our longings, our questions, our hopes.
We may not have tabernacles or high priests today, but I think we still have our own veils, so to speak.
Our own barriers to cross, mysteries to unravel, those things that stand between us and a deeper understanding of ourselves, the world around us, and the divine.
What are those veils in your life, I wonder? What are those things you're still seeking to understand, those barriers you're trying to overcome?
It could be a personal challenge, a spiritual question, a creative pursuit, even a scientific mystery. Anything that sparks our curiosity, that calls us to dig deeper, to push beyond what we currently know.
And maybe the lesson from Exodus 36 is that it's not always about finding all the answers, is it?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes it's about the journey itself, the effort we put in, the care and attention we give to every detail, even the hidden ones.
It's about embracing the mystery, the process of seeking, and trusting that the act of searching itself can bring us closer to the truth, to the connection we're longing for.
I think that's beautifully put, and I think that's a great place to leave our listeners today.
This has been an incredible deep dive into Exodus 36. I feel like we've not only built a tabernacle together, but we've also unearthed some profound insights about faith, community, and the human search for meaning.
It's been a pleasure exploring it all with you.
And for all of you listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked some new thoughts, some new questions, maybe even inspired you to think about your own tabernacles, your own veils, and what it means to see connection and meaning in your own lives. Until next time, keep exploring.